Egypt, a land of unparalleled grandeur, was one of history's greatest civilizations, celebrated for its monumental achievements in art, science, and governance. The Nile River was its lifeblood, enabling agricultural abundance and flourishing trade. For over 3,000 years, pharaohs ruled as divine figures, guiding Egypt's success. By the time Cleopatra VII ascended the throne, Egypt's power had waned, becoming reliant on foreign influences like Rome. In this turbulent era, Cleopatra emerged as a leader of exceptional intelligence and ambition. Navigating a world of shifting alliances, she became a symbol of resilience and shrewd political acumen, securing her place as one of history's most iconic figures. Cleopatra's Ascension. The story of Cleopatra's rise to power begins in 51 BC, following the death of her father, Ptolemy XII Auletes. Born into the Ptolemaic dynasty, Cleopatra inherited a kingdom in turmoil. The Ptolemies, Macedonian Greeks who had ruled Egypt since the days of Alexander the Great, were often seen as foreign occupiers by the native Egyptian population. Yet Cleopatra would distinguish herself from her predecessors by embracing the Egyptian culture in ways they had not. At just 18 years old, Cleopatra became co-regent alongside her 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII, as per the custom of the dynasty. However, this arrangement was fraught with challenges. Cleopatra, ambitious and capable, quickly overshadowed her brother in political influence. Her intelligence was evident. She was a polyglot, fluent in several languages, including Greek, Latin, and Egyptian, a rarity among the Ptolemaic rulers who traditionally distanced themselves from native customs. Cleopatra's initial years as queen were marked by internal strife and external threats. Egypt was deeply in debt to Rome, and its political stability was undermined by a series of natural disasters, including poor harvests caused by irregular Nile floods. Despite these challenges, Cleopatra took bold steps to consolidate her power. She sought to connect with the Egyptian people by presenting herself not just as a ruler, but as the embodiment of the goddess Isis, a popular deity associated with motherhood and protection. However, her boldness also made her enemies. The advisors of her younger brother, led by the ambitious eunuch Pothinus, began plotting against her. They resented Cleopatra's dominance and sought to restore Ptolemy XIII as the primary ruler. Their scheming led to Cleopatra's exile in 48 BC, forcing her to flee to Syria. Exile could have been the end of Cleopatra's story, but it became the catalyst for her greatest achievements. Undeterred, she began amassing an army, preparing for her return to Egypt. Cleopatra's determination was not merely about reclaiming her throne, it was about preserving Egypt's sovereignty in a time when foreign powers, particularly Rome, loomed large over the Mediterranean world. Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. Cleopatra's opportunity to reclaim her throne came in 48 BC, when Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria in pursuit of Pompey, his rival in the Roman Civil War. Caesar's arrival coincided with the escalating conflict between Cleopatra and her brother, Ptolemy XIII. Recognizing Caesar as a potential ally, Cleopatra devised a daring plan to meet with him personally. According to legend, Cleopatra had herself smuggled into Caesar's quarters wrapped in a carpet or, as some accounts suggest, a linen sack. When the carpet was unrolled, the young queen emerged, stunning Caesar with her audacity and charm. This theatrical gesture was not merely for effect. It demonstrated Cleopatra's resourcefulness and willingness to take bold risks to achieve her goals. Impressed by her intellect and captivated by her charisma, Caesar decided to support Cleopatra's claim to the throne. Together, they orchestrated a campaign against Ptolemy XIII and his forces. The conflict culminated in the siege of Alexandria, during which Ptolemy's army was defeated and the young king drowned while attempting to flee across the Nile. With her brother's death, Cleopatra was restored to power, this time as co-regent with her younger brother Ptolemy XIV. To solidify her alliance with Caesar, Cleopatra became his lover, and in 47 BC she gave birth to a son, Ptolemy XV, known as Caesarion. Though Caesar never formally acknowledged Caesarion as his heir, Cleopatra used their relationship to bolster her position in both Egypt and Rome. Cleopatra's alliance with Caesar was a masterstroke of diplomacy. It ensured Egypt's stability and allowed Cleopatra to pursue her vision of a prosperous and independent kingdom. However, it also tied her fate to Rome's volatile political landscape, a connection that would prove both advantageous and perilous. Cleopatra after Caesar's death. The assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BC marked a turning point in Cleopatra's life. With Caesar gone, Cleopatra's alliance with Rome was left in jeopardy. Rome itself descended into chaos as rival factions vied for power. Cleopatra returned to Egypt, where she faced the challenge of maintaining her kingdom's autonomy amid the unfolding Roman civil wars. Determined to secure Egypt's future, Cleopatra sought new alliances. Her attention turned to Mark Antony, one of Caesar's most loyal generals and a key figure in the Second Triumvirate, which ruled Rome in the aftermath of Caesar's death. Their meeting in Tarsus in 41 BC became legendary. Cleopatra, ever the master of spectacle, arrived on a gilded barge adorned with gold, jewels, and purple sails. Dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, she presented herself as both divine and regal. Antony was captivated by her charm and charisma, and the two quickly became allies and lovers. Their relationship was mutually beneficial. For Cleopatra, Antony represented a powerful protector who could help her maintain Egypt's independence. For Antony, Cleopatra's wealth and resources were invaluable in his struggle against Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and rival. Together they formed a partnership that would dominate the politics of the Eastern Mediterranean for over a decade. Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Cleopatra's alliance with Mark Antony began as a strategic necessity, but it evolved into one of the most famous love affairs in history. Their partnership, forged in the political tumult of Rome's civil wars, combined mutual ambition, shared interests, and a profound personal connection that would come to define the fates of both Egypt and Rome. Mark Antony, a charismatic and formidable general, was one of the most influential figures in Rome following the assassination of Julius Caesar. As a member of the Second Triumvirate alongside Octavian and Lepidus, Antony was tasked with overseeing Rome's eastern provinces. His attention soon turned to Egypt, a wealthy and strategically vital ally whose queen, Cleopatra, was as renowned for her intelligence and political acumen as for her beauty. In 41 BC, Antony summoned Cleopatra to Tarsus, modern-day Turkey, to address questions about her loyalty to Rome and her alleged support of Cassius and Brutus, Caesar's assassins. Cleopatra, aware of the stakes, approached the meeting as a grand theatrical performance. Her arrival on a gilded barge with its golden decorations, silver oars and perfumed sails was a calculated display of Egypt's wealth and power. Cleopatra herself was dressed as Aphrodite, the goddess of love, underscoring her divine status and cementing her image as a ruler of unparalleled grandeur. Antony was immediately captivated. Cleopatra's charm, wit, and commanding presence made a lasting impression on the Roman general. Their mutual attraction quickly turned into a romantic and political alliance. Antony accompanied Cleopatra back to Alexandria, where he spent the winter of 41 to 40 BC in her company, reveling in the city's opulence and culture. Their relationship solidified Egypt's position as a key player in the power struggles of the Mediterranean. For Cleopatra, This alliance was a calculated gamble. Rome's influence over Egypt was undeniable, and aligning herself with Antony provided protection and prestige. Antony, in turn, benefited from Cleopatra's immense wealth, which he used to fund his military campaigns. Cleopatra and Antony's partnership quickly bore fruit both politically and personally, with the birth of their twins Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene in 40 BC, followed by another son, Ptolemy Philadelphus. These children symbolized Cleopatra's vision of a united Hellenistic empire under her lineage. However, their alliance sparked controversy in Rome. Antony's relationship with Cleopatra, especially his divorce from his Roman wife, Octavia, sister of Octavian, was seen as a personal insult and a political blunder, worsening tensions with Octavian. Their ambitions aligned in 34 BC during the donations of Alexandria, where Antony granted Cleopatra and their children control over vast territories, declaring her Queen of Kings and naming Caesarion, her son with Julius Caesar, as Caesar's legitimate heir. Celebrated in Alexandria, these acts outraged Rome, where Octavian depicted Antony as a traitor, seduced by Cleopatra's exotic allure. This propaganda war culminated in open conflict, setting the stage for a decisive battle that would seal the fate of Antony, Cleopatra, and Egypt. Cleopatra and Mark Antony versus Octavian. The rivalry between Mark Antony and Octavian culminated in one of the most dramatic military confrontations of the ancient world, the Battle of Actium. This conflict was not just a struggle for power between two Roman leaders, it was also a clash of ideologies, with Cleopatra and Antony representing the Eastern Hellenistic world, and Octavian embodying the disciplined, militaristic ethos of Rome. By 32 BC, the tension between Octavian and Antony had reached a breaking point. Octavian had declared war, not directly on Antony but on Cleopatra herself, a cunning political move that allowed him to position himself as a defender of Roman values against a foreign queen. Octavian's propaganda machine worked tirelessly to paint Cleopatra as a dangerous threat, accusing her of seducing Antony and corrupting him with her wealth and decadence. Cleopatra and Antony, meanwhile, assembled their forces in preparation for the inevitable clash. Their combined army was formidable, consisting of around 500 ships and 100,000 soldiers, including a strong contingent of Egyptian forces. Cleopatra personally financed much of the campaign, contributing both resources and her naval fleet. The decisive battle took place on September 2nd, 31 BC, off the coast of Actium, a promontory in western Greece. Antony and Cleopatra's forces faced Octavian's fleet, commanded by his trusted general Agrippa. Despite their numerical advantage, Antony and Cleopatra were at a strategic disadvantage. Octavian's forces were better trained, and Agrippa's naval tactics outmaneuvered their larger ships. As the battle raged, Cleopatra made a critical decision that has been debated by historians for centuries. Sensing that the tide was turning against them, she ordered her fleet to retreat. Seeing Cleopatra's withdrawal, Antony followed suit, leaving his forces leaderless and ensuring their defeat. The reasons behind Cleopatra's retreat remain unclear. Some suggest it was a calculated move to preserve her fleet, while others argue it was an act of desperation. The defeat at Actium marked the beginning of the end for Antony and Cleopatra. They fled to Egypt, where they regrouped and prepared for Octavian's inevitable invasion. Antony's forces continued to desert him, and his once loyal allies in Rome abandoned his cause. Cleopatra, ever the pragmatist, attempted to negotiate with Octavian, reportedly offering to abdicate in favor of her children. However, Octavian, determined to eliminate any potential rivals, refused her overtures. As Octavian's army advanced on Alexandria, Antony and Cleopatra faced the grim reality of their situation. Their defeat was not just a military loss, but a personal tragedy. as their love and ambition had brought them to the brink of ruin. The Fall of Cleopatra. The fall of Cleopatra and Mark Antony followed their defeat at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. Octavian marched on Alexandria, where Antony, betrayed by his forces, fell on his sword after hearing false news of Cleopatra's death. Mortally wounded, he died in her arms. Cleopatra, facing capture by Octavian, chose death over humiliation. According to legend, she allowed a venomous asp to bite her, though some accounts suggest poison. Her death ended the Ptolemaic dynasty and Egypt's independence, as it became a Roman province under Octavian, who became Augustus, Rome's first emperor. What do you think about Cleopatra's story? Was there a moment that really stood out to you? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you'll be the first to know when we post more awesome Chronicles of Eras.